On today's Remington's Inside the Industry, I'm sitting down with one of the hunting, shooting, ammunition, and ballistic industry's most recognizable wordsmiths, TV hosts, and authors, Mr. Phil Massaro. Phil wears many hats in our industry. He's the editor-in-chief of the popular Gun Digest Annual, a field editor for NRA's North American Hunter magazine, Gun Digest magazine, DSC's Game Trails, and Handloader's Digest, just to name a few. He's written several books, including the newest Gun Digest, Big Book of Ballistics, and can be seen on TV as host of Modern Shooter TV. So let's stop talking about him and start talking to the man himself. Phil, it's great to have you join me today. Thanks for taking the time.
Ken, I really appreciate you having me on. You know, I love these kind of things where we get to sit and chat in a very informal way and just, be the guys that we are.
Yeah, and that's really what it is. It's just a couple of guys BSing, and other people get to listen into our BS.
My dad,
and I guess they can decide whether it's BS or not.
My dad always told me if BS was money, I'd be a millionaire. So I told him I'm on the track, Pop. I'm on the track.
Yeah, exactly. Unfortunately, it doesn't always pay the bills.
I know.
It's kind of interesting because I've known of you before.
Mm-hmm.
The name keeps coming up, et cetera, et cetera. But one of the things that I just learned today is that you're not just a writer.
No.
Masaro Ballistic Laboratories.
Ken, it's funny. We started Masaro Ballistic Laboratories, which is a temporarily suspended custom ammunition company, just because I can't get the components I need to right now. But we started that kind of out of necessity. By trade, I'm a licensed land surveyor, and my father and I have been business partners for 20 years.
Oh yeah, that really relates to ballistics, right?
Well, it was like this, 2007, 2008 hit, and we kind of took a real hard real estate hit in New York. And I looked at the wife and I said, I'm in trouble here, and the only other things I know how to do is to play a guitar, which I did 4 nights a week for a while, and kind of, was looking at the Betty Ford Center probably. And then I said, I know how to make ammunition. So we took a chance, and we formed a custom ammunition company. We got a hold of the ATF and got all the permits and all that kind of stuff. And we started making custom hand loads, a lot of safari stuff that guys couldn't get, some obscure cartridges, maybe some bullet combinations that you couldn't buy off the shelf. But believe it or not, based on social media, the folks at Gun Digest on the books division were watching and asked me to write a book. And I'm like, yeah, right. What am I, Stephen? I can't write a book. I can barely sign my name. And one thing led to another. The Shooter's Guide to Reloading was the first thing I did. Once they got part of that manuscript, they said, we want you to do some articles. That led to the NRA's American Hunter. I've done some stuff for Guns and Ammo. I've done stuff for Sports Afield, and probably, I don't know, the better part of a dozen different publications over time. I'm not a professionally trained writer. I'm not a journalist by background in any way, shape, or form, but they keep sending checks, so I keep sending manuscripts.
Well, Dave Fulson, who, I don't know if we can call him a friend or,
I will,
or what
for
we'd
purpose.
actually call, yeah, okay. He's sitting across from me, and he's got the earphones on, so, but he can't speak, which is
oh, that's got to be
that's
torture.
really tough for him. Yeah, exactly. But Dave says the Big Book of Ballistics is a must-read for anyone wanting a thorough understanding of the sometimes confusing world of that subject.
Dave and I sat down together at the FTW Ranch, the SAM course down there in southern Texas. One of the greatest collections of human beings you'll ever find. And if you want to learn how to shoot, I highly recommend it. But
I don't know. Yeah, I think Fallon's a bit of an asshole, actually. But
can we say asshole? This is great.
Yeah, absolutely we can. We're a couple of guys sitting around having a beer and talking.
Well, then on the record,
I'll make damn sure Fallon listens to this one too.
For that matter, and I say this lovingly, they're all assholes.
Yeah, exactly.
With the exception of the kitchen staff, they're beautiful human beings.
Yeah, you're absolutely.
But
right.
no, Dave and I sat down at the FTW, and I'll never forget. I being a bit of a ballistician and kind of a backyard mechanic way. Dave looks over at me with this look, and he said, if you could cross-section my head right now, you'd see that little monkey with the cymbals just bashing together. He says, this is sailing over my cranium. But then at the same time, an hour later, he's punching 1,500 yard steel like a boss, so I guess he absorbed some of it.
I guess, yeah.
The Big Book of Ballistics was a fun one. That Gun Digest came to me with that idea, wanting to explain, with the popularity of long range shooting and the myriad choices of bullets we have and cartridges, if we could put it into a little bit better perspective. And I did my best to explain the effects of twist rate, bullet shape. We went as far as the Coriolis effect, spin drift, and by the end of the book, I kind of wanted to kick my own ass and just hunt with an iron-sighted 30-30 and a thicket patch and just be left alone, because it's a brain boggle, to be honest. And there's guys like Brian Litz from Burger Bullets and stuff like that who can just they live, eat, sleep, and breathe this stuff, and my hat's off to those guys.
I'm not one of those guys. Honestly, I can punch steel out to 1,500 yards, and as I'm sure that you assumed, Fallon and I are really good friends. Mm-hmm. We've hunted multiple times, and we've known each other and been great friends for many years. And when I need a break from life, because I live in Dallas, so it's pretty easy for me to get down to his place. Mm-hmm. So I go down there just for a day or two of R&R. I hunt something, I shoot some steel, I just sit around and BS with the guys there and just have a great time. But
it's like Disneyland for gun lovers.
Yeah, it really is. And it's a great place to learn anything and everything that you want to know about wind call, et cetera, et cetera. But anyway, what I was getting at is I can punch steel, I can hunt really well. I don't know a damn thing about ballistics. I really don't.
It's rocket
I know,
science. It really is.
Yeah, exactly. And God bless the people that absolutely love it, because it's way over my head.
Unfortunately in New York, our terrain is such that I don't really get a chance to spend much time outside of 300 yards. And again, one of those FTW things is if you want to shoot at 3, train at 5, and it's a logical thought process. But again, we have very limited access to that kind of long range shooting. So when you explain to someone up here that 1,000-yard shots, it almost, I don't want to say a chip shot, but by the time you're ready to pack your bags and come home, you can make that pretty confidently.
Well, you can, especially. I mean, at FTW, it's a little bit different because of the wind, and the wind changes so dramatically. But if we were to go someplace, I don't care, in Nebraska or something like that, where the wind is pretty consistent coming from whichever direction, that 1,000-yard shot is really pretty simple.
It does become, and I don't know if it's the look of the terrain, but here in New York, when you look at and you show somebody, because being a surveyor, we measure land for a living, I show them a 250-yard scenario. That particular tree's 200. Oh my God, I could never make that shot. And I'm like, well, we just did it with a 404 Jeffrey. Fredo and I screwed the scope where we had to go, and we're hitting a 6-inch plate at 250. So
well, I have an interesting theory about that from the gun side, because I spent 10 years in Rochester, New York. I was the CEO of Crosman Air Guns. I think you maybe know that.
Sure.
So, nothing against Rochester or upstate New York, not my ideal place to live. But one of the things that I absolutely learned is, and relating to firearms today, hunting firearms in particular, is if you look at the firearms companies, Remington, Ruger, really all of them, they started in the Northeast.
Yeah, that's
and so
one of the greatest tragedies.
Yeah, so when you start in the Northeast, because I saw this when I was there, hunting season rolls around and people go out and they zero their guns at 100 yards. Mm-hmm. And that's probably a much longer shot than they're normally going to take. So the gun that they use in the Northeast is a gun that doesn't matter how heavy it is, because you're really not walking very far. You're walking in, 200 meters to the blind, and then your shot is 50 to 80 meters generally. So that gun is a much different gun than the mountain gun that you would use out, sheep hunting or elk hunting,
right,
or something like that. And so my theory, and I think it's actually, I've kind of proven it out, is that when you get engineers that are designing guns and they've never shot anything beyond 100 yards,
Yeah,
You've never
there's something
carried
to that.
anything beyond a couple of hundred yards.
Well,
What are you kind of doing?
Ken, let's look at the evolution of it. I mean, again, you refer to all the gun companies being in the Northeast. You know, in New York, at one point in time, we had Savage started here, Ithaca was here, Remington is still here, thank goodness. Kimber was in Yonkers. So, you know, we have a couple that with Massachusetts and Connecticut, and we had the gun culture. You know, without getting political, the political environment here is just not welcoming, if you will. They don't seem to want the gun. No, I know. I mean, well, number one, not just firearms, they're not really conducive to business. I mean, when you look up idiot in the dictionary, there's me smiling with 2 thumbs up because I own 3 businesses in the state of New York. But, the point being, a lot of our designs that are the most popular are based off a time period where the average shot feasibly taken was 100 yards because the sighting system, iron sights, in the average hands aren't good much past 100 yards. The optics at the time were very unreliable. A scope, I remember my dad telling me in the late 60s, just before I was born, he took his scope off because it wouldn't hold 0.
Right.
So with that in mind, now we've got the capability, to part a gnat's hair at 300 with guns kind of designed for a foregone period. So it's a weird bit of dichotomy. And when you have an engineer that doesn't quite understand that, it might be a good idea for all these companies to bite the bullet and send their engineering and R&D teams to the FTW and let them get some of that first world experience.
Well, the FTW is kind of where we cut our teeth. Myself and Hunter and a few of our other guys have been there many times. Mm-hmm. We use it for testing. We used it when we were talking about the Alpha 1 just before we started, bringing out the new Alpha 1, mm-hmm. 700 Alpha 1. And I'll just kind of tell you a little bit about that. And the 700 is such an iconic name that it can't go away. The 700 is too well known. But the Alpha 1, we wanted people to understand that there's a new 700 on the block. So what we did, I started talking to Fallon about it, 2 years ago, I guess, about what should a new gun look like, et cetera, et cetera. Then Hunter and I went there, and we spent 2 or 3 days, and we pulled out every custom gun that Fallon had, mm-hmm. which was many of them. He's got a few. And we shot them all. We looked at what was kind of cool with them, what wasn't, what we really liked, what we didn't like. And we tried to pull as much as we could from these multitudes of custom guns until we said, okay, this is going to be our Alpha 1. It'll be the best of many things. Mm-hmm. And at a price that is quite a bit different than the custom gun price. So that's how the Alpha 1 came about. So to your point, we spent a lot of time at FTW, and Tim is great. We love going out there. But if you want to be involved in testing, you have to go to places like that. In my opinion, not just for testing of guns, but you also have to have somebody that's looking over your shoulder a little bit. I shoot out a long distance. I can hit a 500-yard target, a kill zone of a target with no problem at all. But every once in a while, I'll have, this is a shitty shot. What happened?
Dog will lose, you go, quit booger flicking.
Exactly. You get somebody looking over your shoulder and go, well, look, Darcy, you fucking idiot. This is what's happened here. And you have to have that, because we're not professionals. We don't do it every single solitary day.
Right.
And so you've got to have a company like that. Well, and it's such an interesting thing because FTW is not. There's nothing like it that I've seen anywhere in the world.
No, if you want to, like for instance, I've been blessed enough to hunt around the world, and I love to hunt Africa. I've done a couple of hosting jobs for Dave Folsom and the Safari Classics team for tracks across Africa, and I think we did an episode of Trigicon's World of Sports Afield down in Australia. But the safari end of the FTW, where they've got the walking dangerous game course, and they really teach you how to take a big bore, and it's a different mentality than it is the long-range precision shooting. Take your big bore and really master the gun. It's a different mindset. But that alone, in preparation for an expensive hunt, is well worth the time and money spent.
Yeah, the problem when you're mastering a 375 or above, it hurts like hell sometimes.
Yeah, we got playing with a 470 double, and I'm not a small guy, but I'm not a monster, and I was feeling it the next morning. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. The 375, I think, is just a great round. 375 H&H.
I put it in print, and I'll say it in person. The 375 H&H Belted Magnum is the most useful cartridge ever designed.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. I love the gun because I think it does everything you want without it really beating you up.
Yep.
But I have a 416 that just sighting it in is miserable. I go, shit, I really just don't want to shoot this anymore.
Is it the Rigby or the Remington?
It's a Rigby.
Yeah, I've always found that the 416 Remington Magnum had the same muzzle velocity with much less felt recoil. I mean, I don't know if everybody else feels the same way, but for years I was a fan of that till I kind of fell in love with the 404 Jeffrey.
I've never even shot the 404, but 375 because I'm on my way to Africa in July, I think it is.
Excellent.
Yes, July.
Excellent.
And I'm going to take the Alpha 1 because I want to do some plains games.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to take my 375 because I'm pretty sure I'll go and get a Cape Buffalo.
Excellent. Out of curiosity, Ken, what's the biggest cartridge that the Alpha 1 will be available in?
I think what it won't be quite the Alpha 1, but the Alpha 1 will be at probably 300 Win.
Mm-hmm.
I've got to check. I'll check and ask Hunter just because one of the things that we did is with the Alpha 1 and with with even the 700, we started looking at the calibers that are being offered, and at some point in time you just have to say enough's enough. I've talked to the guys at a few ammunition companies to see what are their calibers and what percentage they amount to, and
yeah, what's
if you
selling,
take
what's
probably
not.
Well, if you take 10 calibers, accounts for 95% of their sales.
Yeah.
So
and we've got an awful lot of overlap in the market right now, an awful lot.
Yeah, exactly. So I haven't got an answer for that,
Mm-hmm.
but one of the things that I can tell you, not out yet, but it will probably be along the Alpha 1 platform, not exactly, but similar. We'll come out with some big bores for Africa.
Okay, so there'll be something available again along the lines of the old, what was it, the KS, the Safari line that was the 700?
Not familiar with that. So
yeah, it was some old stuff I remember years ago.
Yeah, but look, Remington is a powerful name, and for years I don't even know how many years, but they really didn't do much in the big game and the dangerous game type calibers. And then they acquired Dakota, and they used Dakota as that. Mm-hmm. And to my point, why the hell aren't we out doing something like that? Our hunters that use our up to 300 Win or any one of the 700s, if they don't hunt Africa, their dream is always to hunt Africa. So why aren't we giving them a gun to do so?
Well, yeah. I mean, if it's cost effective and you can put it in their hands, I'm sure it will be well received. I
think so.
And again, even in the big bore world, there's a lot of overlap, and I know that Remington had developed the 416 Rem Mag, which was one of my favorites, and I think as big as the Ultra Mag series was 375, something like that. But there's always been plenty of in-house stuff, in the past, but I'm probably going back 20 years now. Didn't realize how much time has flown, but I think for a plains game rifle, that Alpha 1 sounds like a fantastic choice. And that'll cover everything up to buffalo, hippo, and elephant.
Say that again? Did I miss something here?
I don't know. I was saying that for the guy who's looking for a
okay.
rifle.
Yeah. Gotcha.
That Alpha 1 will cover everything but those real big heavyweight animals.
Yeah, exactly. I misunderstood. I thought you said including those, and
God,
a second. I don't want to take my 7 Rem Mag out shooting about Cape Buffalo.
Well, it's been done, but I'm not going to recommend it either.
No, you want to make damn sure the PH has got his double gun loaded and ready to go.
And I hope it starts with a 5.
Yeah, exactly. So no, I'm excited about it. I think we've got some really cool stuff coming out. But this is not about Remington. This is really about Masaro.
No, and that's fine.
So,
It just so happens that last night I was chatting with Hunter on an interview for another article I'm writing. So all the products are kind of like a little bit fresh in my mind, and I was rather excited by the return of it all. And I had told him, I said, I've been carrying the same 870 Express for over 30 years, and the poor old girl's kind of battered, So we were talking about the Field Master and stuff. It was kind of neat.
Yeah, we've done a lot of things that needed to be done with Remington. So, we're pretty proud of what we've done so far, but we've still got a long ways to go.
And I think you should be. I mean, like I say, being I happen to be the editor-in-chief of the Gun Digest Annual, the great big thick book that's been in publication since 1944. So what we do in there is I do it myself sometimes, or I assign the pieces. We like to do a lot of company history, firearms history, pick a model or pick a company, and it's really interesting to me when a guy gets deep into an article and talks about the evolution of a company that we kind of almost take for granted anyway, And Remington, Savage, Winchester, Browning, up and down the line, there's a unique history and a lot of really fervent shooters that appreciate that history. So,
sorry, Phil.
Go ahead.
So, somebody mentioned yesterday, I think it was, that percentage of companies that survive over 100 years, and it's, I believe, under 5%, like 2.5% or something like
digits,
that.
Right? I mean,
yeah, exactly. And so you look at a company like Remington and all the shit that they've gone through over the years, and probably the greatest amount of shit. Excuse my language.
No.
I always explain to people I'm from Canada, so I get to use foul language more so than some people.
The metric swearing equivalent.
Yes, exactly. But when you look at the stuff that they've gone through over in particular, I'm going to say the last 15 years, it hasn't been pretty, and yet they've not only managed to survive, but if we could get our raw material flow, great, we would absolutely thrive. But, the raw material flow is a challenge that everybody's having. So after all this stuff, Remington is still looked at as being such a strong company, which is great, I think, for the industry and,
Well, if you look at the evolution of any company, I mean, and you can correlate it to the firearms industry. I mean, I'm a guitar player, so if you look at, Fender guitars or Gibson guitars, there's kind of a similar pattern that goes on. They develop with a very small company and usually with the boss extremely hands-on. They develop a product that kind of takes off. Because they sold so many, they have to build a new plant, and then because they built a new plant, they have to sell so many more, and then in comes, Johnny Corporate with wads of cash, and then they have to cut the corners, and it's not about the passion of the product. It turns into, this sort of bean counter kind of idea. The product suffers, and then it goes under or comes back. And it's kind of like a pretty similar thing. And like you're saying, to survive for that period of time is nearly miraculous. Because there's a lot of great companies who just kind of went under as a result of that rolling snowball,
Well, I think what happens with most of these companies is, to your point, somebody that was so hands-on, they developed, Fender, Gibson, Remington. And then what happens to your point, is somebody without that passion comes in and they're just number counters.
Yeah.
In my mind, I don't care what I shouldn't say I don't care what industry or if I was in the food container business. Honestly, I don't know how the hell you get passionate about being in the food container business. But if you're
have
in
you
the
never been to the
market,
styrofoam convention?
I never have, and I'm pretty confident I'm not going to go there. But I did know somebody. I was a board member of a company, and the CEO of another company was on the board, and he had one of those styrofoam companies that specialized in food for chicken, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
And he was such a I'm not even going to say what I thought of him, but he ground people so hard, his vendors, so hard when the price of oil changed, his company went out of business because he needed their help then, and they're going like, screw you, we haven't made any money off you for all these years, and now tough shit.
Right.
But anyway, in the niche categories that Remington is, or the firearms industry is, I spent most of my career in the ski business, so the niche category of the ski industry, automotive, whatever it is that's a niche category, if you don't have the passion, you will not do well.
That is a brilliant statement. And, back to my history, just to touch on the same subject, having come into this unlooked for, again, I started surveying underneath my dad at 11 years old. So that's kind of been my life. To come into an industry, completely cold at almost 40 years old, this is it's a family. And there's competition, and I get it, and a lot of gun riders are gunslingers. We have egos, and I get that too. But I've never found an industry that is more supportive of itself than the firearms industry.
I would agree with that. Matter of fact, recent conversation that I've had with somebody else in the firearms industry, we're competitors, and we can be pretty nasty competitors, but we're all on the same team.
Yeah,
because we have to be.
The whole thing thrive, right? I mean, that seems to be the goal, and I appreciate that. Even from the writing side, I mean, some of the relationships I've built, even with the guy who's probably chomping at the bit to speak over there, Mr. Fulson, it's an absolute honor just to call these people a friend. At the end of the day, I'm a rich man, whether or not my bank account reflects that.
Yeah. Well, Fulson sitting across the table from me, this is the first time that he hasn't been writing a bunch of stuff down and handing it to me. Although I had it already written down, but he's gone, oh shit, he's got to say that. He's got to ask this, But, And it's always fun to give him a bad time, too, because he deserves it.
Muzzling Dave Fulson is borderline torture.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good point. I'll have to remember that. What about, you've done a bunch of TV work, too. Tell me a little bit about that.
That came about again rather unlooked for. Chris Sells over at Heim USA.
I know Chris.
You know Chris?
I'm gonna talk him into maybe letting me.
You should get him on. Good old Ginger. He's a great guy.
He's been on the podcast
before.
And I know Chris quite well, and so anyway, sorry for.
So no. He was coming out with the Model 89B double rifle, and he said, hey, I want you to come to Mozambique. I want you to do the first African head of game with this new double rifle. He goes, and I want to film it for tracks. I said, okay, put me in, coach. Where do I sign up?
No, sorry, I'm not interested.
Check my schedule. Oh, look, I'm open. So that, again, having never done a television program and having never hunted with a camera guy over my shoulder, I think it went rather smooth. I mean, we got a nice buffalo in the forest in Kutada 11, and Haldane's place is famous in Mozambique there for that swamp hunt where you go in that nasty papyrus water up to your armpits and come out with leeches. Yeah.
I told Haldane I'm not doing that.
Yeah, I mean, the year I went out there because Chris shot one buffalo out there, and it was dry that year. They were like, this is a record drought. You're not even going to get your feet wet. And I looked up at the sky and thank God.
So that's perfect because doesn't sound like a lot of fun to me wading through that.
No. And the one pocket of water we hit with that big BV, whatever it's called, machine, it stunk. It was like a dumpster in August. I'm like, yeah, this is fun. But anyway, no, we got a good buffalo in the forest with a double rifle, and footage came out great. Doug King was our cameraman. We ended up meeting one of Harry Manner's last trackers. The guy was probably in his 60s, and for a native African, he looked every day of it. Really nice gentleman. Took a couple of translators to get our points across, but we spent a couple hours in camp on camera, and it was a unique experience. I actually like TV. There's a bit of a pressure when there's a cameraman over your shoulder because you can't just shoot. He's got to have the shot as well as you, and God forbid you miss on camera or something along those lines. It can be an awful experience. So it adds some pressure, but it's really, it's kind of neat to see yourself on television. And then I heard the sound of my own voice speaking. I'm like, God, do I really sound like that? But I do.
And I found that the same. Do I sound like that, and do I look like that? Jesus, I better diet a little bit. I need to lose a few pounds.
That camera made me look round.
Yeah, and maybe get some makeup on.
Right. Can we just get a stunt double?
Yeah. But it is challenging when you're doing stuff for television for that very reason.
Oh, it sure is.
You have to wait till the cameraman's ready before you can take the shot.
And here's the problem, Ken. The animals don't read the script.
Yeah, exactly.
No one told that whitetail to run through here. He's supposed to stop broadside at 45 yards so I can punch a hole in him.
Exactly.
So it does. And I've had a couple of really good, very fortunate TV episodes. We did one with Brian Van Blurk in Zimbabwe, where on day 8 of a 7-day hunt, like literally my wife was packing our belongings while we went out for the last time, and I ended up pulling a double on Cape Buffalo. Which on camera again with Doug King. He probably seems like Doug's my good luck charm, but was it expensive? Yes, it was expensive. But when you put 2 Cape Buffalo bulls in front of you, you shoot them both with a double. That's just what you do.
Well, maybe I won't take a double with me then.
No, I highly advise it. I'll never forget Brian Van Blurk looking. There's his brother. Take him, and I give him the left barrel, and I went, what did I just do? What just happened there?
Yeah. I just wrote a bigger check.
Exactly, and it was I was in the shower. We're getting ready to get on the truck to go back to the airport, and the bill come underneath the door, and I went from hero to goat in a millisecond.
And then you had to go home and explain that.
Well, Mama was with me, so she got the bill. Okay. I come out of the shower and she's got that look on her face. I'm like, this isn't good. I've done so. Oh, that's what I did. Right. About that, honey. Remember that coat you wanted?
Yeah, sorry. So Africa, you love hunting Africa.
I sure do. I mean, I love it all. Don't get me wrong, but that's where my heart lies.
Well, what have you not shot in Africa that you'd like to? What places do you love in Africa, or is it just everywhere?
Well, I've never been anywhere where I'm like, God, that was an awful time. I'm never going there again. I have.
I can tell you exactly what it feels like. It feels not in Africa, but Fallon and Larry Weishun and I were filming for Larry's show in Kyrgyzstan, and Kyrgyzstan is never going to see me again.
Yeah, I'm not a big Stan guy.
Yeah,
I'm not that mad at the animals there, but that's just me.
Nor am I now.
I've done a bunch of stuff around Zimbabwe, and I think for the dollar, Zimbabwe is really hard to beat. Done plains game a few times in South Africa. I really enjoyed Namibia. My dad and I got to go to the Selous in Tanzania, and I won't say fluently, but I can get by in Kiswahili, so that was like an added bonus for me. One of the nice points when I hunt with Brian Van Blurk is that both he and his trackers speak Kiswahili, so we can do that kind of thing too.
Oh, cool.
Zambia was a fantastic place. The Luangwa Valley in Zambia might be my favorite place on the continent. But,
really?
Yeah, it's. I think it's all the game of the Selous. They've got great buffalo, crawling with cats. So I have taken neither of the cats. I did book a leopard hunt for next year with Tanya Blake, the only female PH in Zimbabwe. So we're gonna go to Chiriza and try and conjure up a cat. Lion, I don't know. It's an awful lot of money and probably outside of my realm of possibility, especially when I look at it like, I can do another elephant or I could do 3 buffalo for that kind of money. And I'm a buffalo hunter. I'm a buffalo junkie. I'm not gonna lie.
Are you? I'm going to hunt for the first time.
Oh, buffalo. God love you. Well, it's the first draw off the crack pipe. You're going to be an addict from that point in time forward. There's no two ways about it. To me, there's no other. I mean, look, elephant was fantastic. I've only done one, and it was a life-changing experience, really moving experience. But, you put a herd of buffalo in front of me, and, brother, you got my undivided attention.
Well, I'll tell you what it's like at the end of July when I come back.
Well, I hope that everything goes safe for you, number one, because they can be dangerous. My advice is shoot straight, shoot true, and don't fool around. If you've got to go on the cover up, let the PH go first, because that's what he does. But
I'll throw that son of a bitch right in front of me if I have to. I'm not concerned with that.
Knocking wood here. I've never had one charge. One tried to charge us in Mozambique, but I gave him a pair of 450 400s that sorted him out finally. But just play it safe because it can change in a heartbeat. But my God, is it exciting! It's just to watch the trackers work. That's to me is the magic part. These guys are the unsung heroes. I can tell you a fresh pile of buffalo crap in a heartbeat, and they'll make you stick your fingers in it, and that's part of the routine. But when you watch them track, for example, I had a terrible experience personally. It was a great hunt, but I wounded a buffalo and didn't get him in Zimbabwe last year. Bullet hit a branch. Bullet went forward. I had sprained my ankle that morning, so we tracked that particular bull for 23 miles over the next 3 days on a sprained ankle. And I have to this day, Lyndon Stanton was the PH's name. His trackers were absolutely amazing because the bull had stopped bleeding and they were tracking one buffalo by his track. They knew which one he was, and we got on him. We heard him at one point in time, and he crossed the tar road out of our concession, so there was nothing we could do. But, the point of the matter was that those trackers just did such an excellent job. I can't sing their praises enough.
Oh, I know it. And they're fantastic guys to be around, too. I was in Namibia, and a similar experience. I tracked an eland for 2.5 days. Mm-hmm. Never got it. We'd come across a watering hole. You could see where the ground was still wet, but it wasn't there. And we hunted around, and,
Well, at that point in time, he's going to live,
Yeah, the closest I got was in the evening, and it was just too dark, and it was maybe 20 meters away from me, but in the trees and at night, and I just didn't see it.
Right.
But the tracker was fantastic, and I gave them a great laugh the last morning because I was going to the airport. I don't remember what time the flight was out. I was going to Botswana, but we were... So I was going to final half day of this eland, and finally we gave it up, and we were heading back, and there was a baboon at 500 yards. And I told the PH, I said, "Give me the sticks." And this little baboon was standing on a big rock pile with his arms up in the air, screeching at us. And I said, "Give me the sticks." He says, "Too far away." I said, "No, it's not. Give me the sticks." And he put the sticks up, and I got this baboon right in the chest. And the tracker was laughing so hard. For the next half hour, he just couldn't stop laughing. Because you know how they feel about their baboons.
They're not a fan. Not a fan at all.
No, that's like the feral hogs in
they are.
Texas.
They're like coyotes. Just get rid of them. Any means necessary.
Yeah, exactly.
We were at a little camp in the Dete Valley of Zimbabwe, and it was an open season on them because every time we come back into camp, the baboons and the other monkeys would be on the roof pulling out the thatch just to be assholes, Screw your roof, So there was an open season on those guys.
Yeah, exactly. Well, when I was there in Namibia, and I think most places, they'll say just whatever you see, one, shoot them.
Yeah, for sure. And they're tough. They're tougher than you'd expect.
I don't know. That was the only one I shot, and I got him right in the chest with a 300 Win. So
my buddy Dave smoked a big dog baboon in the chest with a 416 Rigby, and I thought there was going to be a revolution. The whole woods came to life. I'm like, wow.
Yeah, no, they're a nasty animal. You talked about Mark Haldane a little bit. Mm-hmm. I had I've mentioned this in the podcast before, but Mark and I spent a little bit of time at the DSC show this year, convention. And he told me that when he first got his concession in Mozambique, in one particular area, the Delta, where you get to wade through the muck, when he got that concession, there was under 1,200 buffalo there. And today there's 25,000.
You want to talk about a conservation success story. Kutata 11 is just, it's idyllic, number one, because you've got the forest and you've got great plains game in there. But I have never seen more buffalo in my life. And it's funny because Chris and I went out and Chris used my 404, which he sold me, so it was his than mine, then he borrowed it back, to kill a buffalo at just about 200 yards. And the herd moved off maybe 350 yards and stood there. And my wife snapped one of my favorite photos ever. It's me with a double rifle over my shoulder on the floodplain with a herd of buffalo behind me. I mean, that was just what an amazing place, though. And Mark is one of the most nicest, genuine human beings I've ever met.
Yeah, he's a good guy. I was supposed to go there last, I think it was November.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was supposed to go in November with Fallon and a couple of others, and I had to bow out of it. I didn't want to, but, I was just too busy at work. And
Yeah.
plus,
yeah.
I told Haldane, I said, it's the middle of the summer. I don't really want to be there in that temperature.
Well, that's what
No. The camp is air conditioned. I said, yeah, but what about the days not in camp?
Well, I tell you, it's hot out there. That sun is it's relentless. It really is. But again, that's what the buffalo love. And they brought the lions back there. I know the Cabela family worked to bring that lion movement back in. So they're there, and their anti-poaching efforts. I know DSC does an awful lot in that particular area to help with the anti-poaching efforts. They got a little helicopter and they got motorbikes and all this other kind of stuff. The gin traps that he's pulled out, the snares that they've relieved. I mean, does that work? Yeah. Like, to your point, look at the numbers that have increased. I mean, you can't argue with that.
Yeah. So we got off on a tangent about hunting and things like that, but what about the media today? The writing and the media the way it is today. I think, and this is a question.
Mm-hmm.
My opinion is things have changed quite a bit from the publications to the blogs to the social media. What's your thoughts about that?
We're kind of in uncharted waters, Ken. I mean, the digital end of things gives, wonderfully, it gives everybody a voice. I mean, if you have a computer, you can have a blog and have it hosted somewhere. It doesn't mean that you know what you're talking about. It doesn't mean your opinions are founded in any way, shape, or form. But I don't know that that's necessarily a bad thing. On the other side of the coin, there is I'll call it the good old boy, society, where you've been proven as an author and your opinions are respected, and you're in a print magazine and you got to know somebody to get there. And it's kind of hard because there's again, being the editor-in-chief of the Gun Digest, I get a lot of unsolicited articles, which is cool and not cool at the same time. What there is there's more people wanting to write than there is space to publish them. So where do we sit? People say print is dead. I disagree. I mean, when I want to read a book, I want to read a book. Like, for example, I don't want to read Horn of the Hunter by Robert Ruark on my phone.
Right. I agree with that.
I like to sit with a book
I hate
in my
reading
hand.
stuff on my phone.
But when I want to read, somebody's opinion about the 6/8 Western or, a 1,000-word article I've done, I'm fine with that on the phone because that's one trip to the bathroom and I'm good to go, So that I can get through that in one sitting, if you will, pun fully intended. I think there's room for both. What I don't like sometimes is things that go unfact-checked or some gross misinformation. And I mean, look, we're all human. Everybody makes a mistake. Everybody has a misconception which has been handed down for time immemorial, wives' tales and things that just kind of get, repurposed and republished and repeated by rote. And every once in a while we'll look into it. Phil Shoemaker, he writes for me, the bear guide from Alaska. And Phil, he's like my dad. He loves to be argumentative, but not in a bad way. He really takes the time to do his homework. And, we were having a little go-round about whether or not Teddy Roosevelt's 1903 Springfield on that safari was a 3006 or a 3003. And as his editor, I'm like, well, look, I found this. And so that was like a bit of an educational, process for the both of us. But then there's other times where you might have an editor who isn't even well-versed enough to pick up on the subtleties. So that things might suffer in that way. Overall, I think the information age is a blessing. Do you agree? I mean, I remember, hoarding Jack O'Connor articles, Elmer Keith, Craig Boddington, all my heroes growing up. You'd soak that information.
Just say, we don't want Boddington to hear that he was a hero.
I've told him that, but I hire him now, so it's a different story.
Okay.
But what I do like, for example, Dave Folsom sitting next to you wrote a fantastic piece about double rifles for us in the Gun Digest last year, and
I read it.
It passionate, and I love that. Now, would Dave necessarily have written that if I hadn't? I don't know, but I'm awful happy that I did. And I like to give younger guys too. I don't want it to be the stodgy old timers club. I want some new blood. I want some young passion. I want a new set of eyes to take a look at, the 270 Winchester and don't be afraid to call out its shortcomings. We can do that.
I personally am torn between the digital era and the print era. I'm like you. If I, for instance, if there's something I have to really focus on, which you can imagine, those of us that are in the firearms industry, and the higher you get, the more time you spend looking at legal documents. If I want to look at something and really digest it, I have to print it and read it. I don't even want to look at it on my computer. Forget the phone. I'd like to print it, read it, I'll mark it up.
Yeah, there's something about having it in hand tangibly.
Well, yeah, and it's easy to go back and forth and find things. So I think to me, that's something that maybe I've just grown up with. I think there's certainly there's a lot to be said about the digital age and Instagram, YouTube, et cetera, I like a lot of it, but some of it not so much either, because to your previous point, there's no fact checking in it. Whatever, if you've got 500,000 followers and I have 100,000, you could lie your guts out, and you've got 500,000 people that think it's accurate.
You're right.
And I have a problem with that.
So I love it for example, if I got to change the bolt face on a Blaser R8.
Right.
I don't want to have to go and find the owner's manual. It's nice just to sit at the table and, with the gun in front of you and watch the guy do it. That part,
exactly.
That's a different story. But for example, if I find an excerpt from one of J.A. Hunter's, rarely published books, I want to own that book. And, I've got what I call the Masaro Library of Useless Africana, which is, a collection of century-old stories that on a cold winter's day, when I have time to read, because I'm usually working, I like to pick that up. And there's solace in a book. A book feels a certain way and smells a certain way. So maybe that's the old school in the both of us. I'm 50 now, but I'm not opposed to digital. I'm not. I don't like a Kindle when it comes to a book length kind of a thing. But for articles, I'm okay with it.
Yeah. I'm very much the same. The thing with the digital that I find challenging, the social media stuff that I like to, I don't know how it works, but to me, everybody's got farts. Some of them just a hell of a lot smellier than others. And they all go out there.
Social media, especially from the hunting firearms end of things, is a blessing and a curse at the same time. We've got the antis who are so vulgarly vocal, and I'm not trying to silence anybody's First Amendment rights, but like Tyson said, half the problem with this world is that they've never been punched in the face. Yep. And you've got now an entire generation that has had no consequences or repercussions for their actions, and it's really starting to show.
Well, and an entire generation that believes whatever the headlines say is factual.
Yeah, we got that going for us, don't we? I've pretty much just turned the news off on all fronts because I can't find an honest opinion on anything.
Yeah, exactly right. I've got friends in the Ukraine. Mm-hmm. That I was over there about a month before Putin attacked, and we were out shooting and having a wonderful time, and so they are the only source that I have to give me kind of factual information.
Right.
And their home was in Kherson, or is in Kherson, which, as you know, is one of the places that Putin has tried to take over completely. But what they were telling me was very different than what I was reading in the media.
Funny how that is, huh?
Yeah, it really is.
And the manipulation, that's what I don't like. Imagine if we did that in the firearms industry. You send me a new 700 Alpha 1 and I pick one of the complete dog turd 700s from a decade ago. I'm like, it's the same gun. No. You can't look. That's not fair. And they do that. And I don't know why. I've become very and it's funny because I am the media in certain aspects, I suppose, but I've become very distrusting of it, especially on the corporate level.
Well, interesting that you said that, Phil, because one of the things that, from my standpoint, that I am very, very cautious with before we let somebody try a gun is, who are these people? Are they going to be honest about what they're telling? Or is there something else? Meaning that if there's another company that they're married to and they're making a bunch of money from and they're traveling all over the world to hunt, are they going to be really fair with Remington? And so to me, it's really important that we have a look and we know who these writers are or who these bloggers are, etc. Because if they are married to somebody, I really don't want them looking at our product.
Right. And the rule of thumb always was you don't print a negative article. And I know one that sticks, and I'm not picking, just it sticks in my mind. What was it, the Remington R51 that had a lot of problems when it first came out years ago?
Yeah, exactly.
And I know a lot of writers that just wouldn't have touched it. And some guy said, I'm sorry, I got to put this in print. This is a dog turd. And you need to fix it. And they did. And that's kind of cool. My rule of thumb was if you don't see me writing about it, there's a reason.
Well, the thing is, it's okay that somebody put the R51 and it's dog shit. But did they write about it after the company fixed it? Because the R51, exactly. The R51, if I look at all the handguns right now, the R51 is probably the best one that Remington has made. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't the best one when they brought it out.
Well, it had an issue, and like I say,
exactly.
Nobody's perfect. And I've done this with other editors because my primary job is a freelance author. I had one guy tell me, "Well, this isn't exactly you kind of jacked it up." I'm like, "Give me a chance to fix it." You will? I said, "Of course I will. It's my name.
Yeah,
my name's on it." And there's that pride thing we get back to talking about. To do the right job, and like you say, you got one shot at a first impression, and you want to bring products out that are good the first time. That doesn't mean that there aren't going to... Hell, the space shuttle had bugs, right?
Yes, of course. Everything's got bugs. If you try to rush it and you get it out early, and then even then you're probably going to have some bugs. But in the case of the R51, it really shouldn't have been brought out when it was.
Right, and I didn't mean to pick on that. It was just one example that I
know
was
kind
of controversial.
But it was a great example because when I first started at Remington, I was looking at the R51 and Remington had stopped producing it, and I said, "Why have you stopped producing it?" And they told me the big story, and so I started looking and said, this is really a fantastic product. Can we reintroduce it? Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know. Can you? Can't you? I think you can, because if the gun is good, why not? What kind of big changes have you seen in the trends in gear, firearms, ammo? In the last 5 years, 10 years.
Well, I mean, the long range game is hot and heavy, and you've got products out there fully capable of, like we were talking, 1,000-yard shooting. Our barrels on pretty well across the board. The barrels that are coming out from modern rifle makers are so much better than they were 50 years ago. You remember the days when you were a hand loader, you shot a 1 MOA group, you would cut the target out and you bought the first round at the bar.
Yeah.
Now if a $400 gun off the Walmart shelf or Dick's Sporting Goods shelf doesn't make that mark, you're like, "Oh, what a piece of crap." You know what I mean? That has been a game changer. But there's also this dreaded idea where the shooter no longer has to do his or her part and you can buy the talent, and that's just simply not true. You can give me the best loophole scope with a compensated dial and yardage, taking all the thinking out of it with a well-tuned Timney trigger and the finest federal high BC ammunition, in a gun that just is proven to be lights out, and if you can't shoot properly, it isn't going to work. So
that's the story of a lifetime. I know that Dave and these guys have heard me say this a million times. I race cars, and you see all the time somebody buying a faster car, mm-hmm. and I pass them in the slower car, and their mind they can't believe it. And I go, learn how to drive.
Well,
I feel the same way about guns.
That's it.
Spend the money, go to FTW, learn to shoot.
I'm not saying don't buy the good gear. But that is not going to replace the ability to take a cheaper gun that's 2 MOA and put it in a deer's heart at 100 yards.
Exactly. Buy the good gun if you want, but learn how to shoot the good gun.
And I think that we need to spend a little bit more money and focus on like you say, training. And that goes for hunters. And I'm not a long range hunter. I mean, 400 yards is about my self-imposed maximum. But it especially goes for the recent trend in self-defensive concealed carry.
Right.
We've got what's the numbers? Almost 20 million first-time gun buyers in the last couple of years, and with no training, I mean, you'll get shot with your own gun.
It scares the hell out of me because you talk about this, the self-defense, home self-defense. People ask me, especially during the last 2 years, they ask you all the time, what should I get? Should I get this 9mm or this 45? I go, get a shotgun.
Right.
I've got handguns, and if somebody breaks into my house, I've got to go, hey, look, I've got a gun. Could you get a little bit closer? Because I can't hit you from where you are now. Because handguns are freaking hard to shoot. Accurately.
It's like golf. It's not very difficult when Tiger Woods is swinging the club, but he does this every day of his life.
Yeah, exactly.
So the more you handle a firearm, the better you're going to be. But in this era, with the popularity of the self-defense, and I think there is a genuine need for it in our modern society. There's never been more opportunities to go get some good training.
Oh, I agree. I agree completely with that. I mean, Fallon, I know he is so busy. It's unbelievable how busy he is.
If the price of safaris, you're going to drop 5 figures unless you're on a 2-day Impala hunt or something in South Africa. You're going to drop $10,000 and you're traveling literally halfway across the world. The investment with Fallon is going to pay back in tenfold in confidence. And, not like you're tracking an eland and I'm tracking a buffalo where something just went wrong. That happens. But if you make a lousy shot on your first safari, boy, is that a dejecting feeling. Yep. I've seen guys do it, and I feel absolutely terrible for them. I know it happens. It's not necessarily a negligent thing, but I want to stack the odds in my favor as much as I can because life's hard enough as to begin with. Yeah,
I'm the same as you. I want to give myself every opportunity I possibly can. And,
for sure.
And to me, look, this has happened a number of times. I think that with podcasts like this, with guys like you and me, Fallon owes us something, and he owes us actually a shitload. Because
I think I've never seen that man pull a trigger on a gun.
Oh, I have. I've been hunting with him.
Is it as bad as they say?
just about. If he would stop booger flicking, he'd be fine.
God bless him. No, I always described Tim as the uncle you always wanted. He's that kind of guy.
Yeah, no, he's a great guy, and he's just got such a good program. I first went there. I hunted and shot when I was young, and then life took over. I was focused on business, et cetera, et cetera, and I didn't do it for a long time. And about 20 years ago, I decided, I want to start hunting again. And I thought, I'm going to find a place to go. So somebody recommended FTW. And I went there, and I go there all the time since. And Fallon and I have been good friends for 20 years now and have hunted a number of times together. And he's a great guy, and he's got a tremendous program. But I remember when I first went, he didn't really have much on the go, and I thought, Jesus, just looking at it then until today it's unbelievable what they've been able to accomplish. It's really evolved,
and again, he's got the wind canyons that'll just it's a hellacious course if they want to put you through it, but it can really, really bolster confidence. And what I like is, as a writer, there might be 2 or 3 of us, but there'll be a family of 4 or 5, and they've got a 14, 15-year-old daughter. And this little girl goes from, now how do I hold this safety thing again? And what's the trigger do? And 4 days later, you're watching her ring steel at 1,000. It's like, okay, they know how to teach somebody how to do this thing.
Yeah, they really do. And, it's unfortunate that you can't replicate it some places. I've got a person that I know and do some business with in Turkey that would like to learn how to shoot. And there's just not the same opportunity.
No.
No. So Fallon said, tell them to come here. And I said, oh, come on, Tim. I said, their income over there is not such they can jump on a plane and fly over here. Exactly. I said, that's just not possible. But it's really difficult to get that kind of training anywhere.
He's got such a good team. I mean, Dave Knesick and Dog and Efron and all those guys. Not only are they, well-qualified teachers, but they're really personable people.
Yeah, I've been hunting with them a few times. We were up in Leaf River a number of years ago, and then we were up crane hunting in North Texas. We had a great time, Dog and Kinesic and
Yeah.
and F and myself. And
And back to my
couple
point
other
about
guys.
the industry being like a family, we will spend 3 days laughing until our bellies hurt, and you get back to the bar with a black buck or two, and it gets even worse. They start
Yeah, exactly.
telling war stories, and that's what I tell my wife. I said, this job I've got pays what it pays, and I know I'm working 2 full-time jobs, but the VIG is priceless.
Yeah,
These
that's right.
experiences, and at the end of the day, it's funny. My sister-in-law got us for Christmas one of the greatest gifts I've ever received. It's I don't know, it's like 2 by 3 feet, so 24 by 36. It's the National Geographic map of the world, but it's on a cork board. And what you do is you take pins and put pins like Rocky Dennis in the Mask movie. You put pins where you've been, and I'm like, look at all the pins. Look at the stuff we've done.
Yeah, but then you can look at it too and say, Jesus, I hope I live for a long time. There's still a lot of
There's a lot
places
of
to
blank
go.
areas.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's the Shadowland. We don't go there.
Yeah, some of the places you don't want to go to in the first place.
Like I said, I'm not big on the stands.
But yeah, I'm not big on the stands anymore either. But I think it could have been a lot better than it was. It was just in private we'll have a conversation
Sure.
sometime. One of the things that's kind of interesting, because I've seen a lot of companies, and Remington was one of them, having a conversation like this and saying, hey, look, we've got a new gun coming out, Phil. Let's go on a hunt. Mm-hmm. Which is a nice thing to do, I think.
Sure.
It makes, who cares about a hunt? Look, anytime you can go on a hunt, that's great. I don't think from a firearms company, I'm asking you this as a media person,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think from a firearms company you get a lot with taking a writer on a hunt. I think you get a lot by going to a place with like FTW, where they really get a chance to try the gun and focus on the gun and learn about the gun. What are your thoughts about that?
I agree with you, but it's a double-edged sword. What I try to do, if I'm going to do a review of a gun and they want to do a writer's event where it's a hunt, I think that's fantastic, because you load the gun every morning. If it's a deer hunt you're sitting on stand, you might get 1, 2, 3 shots, but you do get a really good feel for the firearm, and it puts things a little bit more under pressure with a live animal there. But what I also try to do is, following that hunt, I always ask them, can you send me, if not this gun, can you send me another gun so I can really take it at my range and do what I want to do with it, and to get that kind of feel. But to your point, the FTW gives you 100 times more trigger time than anything else.
Right.
And maybe, I'm not trying to kiss Fallon's ass. It could be any facility like that, but where you got a series of varying targets at different ranges, it's without the pressure of a hunting thing or a drawn tag or wounding. It really allows the reviewer to get a better feel for the gun.
I agree, and that's why, as you well know, we're going to invite you and others to test our new Alpha 1 in August.
Well, I would be honored to come, and pardon the hilarity that will go on with that crew, but that's just par for the course over there.
Well, it makes it fun, and that's why we're all in the industry.
And that, like I said, that's the VIG. That's what pays off at the end of the day. I'm a blessed human being in order to do what I love.
Yeah, Phil, I'm going to send this to Fallon and tell him that he owes us a lot, but
Chill the beard, Tim. Chill the beard.
Exactly. But I'm going to wind it down. I really
Sure.
appreciate you taking the time.
Well, honored to be
It's been
here.
a great conversation. I really enjoy it, and look forward to seeing you in August.
Okay, buddy. Listen, let's do this again. This was a great time.
Okay. Thanks, Phil. Appreciate
Ken.
your time.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.